Sir, the manager called. You need to pay for that water and leave.
I already paid. The receipt's right here in my hand.
Don't walk away from me. Put your hands where I can see them.
I'm holding groceries. I'm trying to show you the receipt.
Okay, you know what? You are under arrest. Drop the bags. Now.
The fluorescent lights of Save Mart buzzed overhead on a Thursday afternoon in Columbus, Ohio. Officer Todd Harrison walked through the automatic doors at 3:47 p.m., responding to a shoplifting call. The man he was about to confront had done absolutely nothing wrong. He was Master Sergeant Jamal Williams, a 37-year-old black combat veteran with 2 Bronze Stars, 15 years of military service, and a spotless record. Jamal had just finished buying groceries for his elderly mother who was recovering from hip surgery. In the next 12 minutes, Officer Harrison would make decisions that would cost him his badge, his career, and his future in law enforcement. Every second of what happened was captured on 4 different security cameras. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get intense. You don't want to miss what happens next. Jamal Williams stood 6 feet tall with the rigid posture that comes from years of military discipline. That Thursday afternoon, he was on 2 weeks of leave from Fort Benning, Georgia, visiting his mother in Columbus. She'd had hip replacement surgery 3 weeks earlier and was still struggling with mobility, so Jamal had flown up to help her around the house. One of his daily tasks was grocery shopping. His mother had given him a list that morning: milk, eggs, chicken breast, fresh vegetables, some bread, and a case of bottled water. Standard items for the week ahead. Jamal went through the store systematically, the way he did everything. He grabbed a cart, worked through the aisles, checking items off the list, and headed to the self-checkout when he was done. The store wasn't busy. It was mid-afternoon on a weekday, so most of the checkout lanes were empty. He scanned each item carefully. Beep, milk, beep, eggs, beep, chicken. He went through the whole cart, placed everything in bags, and paid with his debit card. The receipt printed out. He folded it and put it in his hand, planning to give it to his mother so she could see what he'd bought. As he pushed his cart toward the exit, he reached into one of the bags and pulled out a bottle of water from the case he'd just purchased. It was warm in the store, and he'd been walking around for 20 minutes. He opened the bottle and took a long drink. He didn't think twice about it. The water was paid for. The receipt was in his hand. He was just thirsty. But store manager Laura Kensington saw something different. Laura was a 52-year-old white woman who'd worked at Save Mart for 11 years, the last 4 as manager. She prided herself on watching for shoplifters. She'd caught dozens over the years, and the district manager had commended her multiple times for loss prevention. When she saw Jamal drinking from the water bottle while still in the store, something clicked in her mind. She saw a black man consuming merchandise before exiting. And despite having no actual evidence of theft, despite not checking the cameras or verifying anything, she made an assumption. She walked quickly toward Jamal, her shoes clicking on the linoleum floor. "Excuse me, sir. Sir, did you pay for that water?" Jamal stopped and turned around. He was used to this kind of thing. It happened more often than he liked to admit. The suspicion, the assumptions, the need to constantly prove he belonged, prove he'd paid, prove he wasn't a criminal. "Yes, ma'am," he said, keeping his voice polite. "Just checked out." He held up the receipt that was still in his hand. "Everything's on here." Laura didn't look at the receipt. She didn't take it from his hand to examine it. She'd already decided what was happening. "I need you to come with me to the office so we can verify that." Jamal felt his jaw tighten. "You can verify it right here. The receipt's time-stamped. Shows I paid 3 minutes ago. Look at it." Store policy requires verification in the office when there's a question about payment. There shouldn't be a question. "I'm showing you the receipt." Laura's expression hardened. "Sir, I'm asking you to cooperate. If you refuse, I'll have to call the police." Jamal took a slow breath. He'd been in combat. He'd been shot at. He'd seen things that would give most people nightmares. But standing in a grocery store being accused of stealing water he'd paid for made his blood pressure spike in a way firefights never had. "Ma'am, you can call whoever you want. I'm not going to any office when I haven't done anything wrong. I paid for my groceries. Here's the receipt with my card number and the timestamp. You can check your security cameras if you don't believe me. But I'm not being treated like a criminal for shopping while black." The words came out sharper than he'd intended, but he was tired. Tired of being followed in stores. Tired of being watched like a suspect. Tired of having to prove his innocence for existing in spaces where some people thought he didn't belong. Laura pulled out her phone and called 911. Officer Todd Harrison was 2 blocks away when the dispatch came through his radio. "Retail theft in progress at Save Mart, 2847 Henderson Avenue. Manager reports subject consuming merchandise, refusing to cooperate. Todd was 29 years old with 5 years on the Columbus Police Department. He liked his job, particularly the authority that came with the uniform. He liked the way people's attitudes changed when he showed up, the respect, the power. He flipped on his lights and drove to Save Mart, pulling into the parking lot less than 3 minutes after the call. He walked through the automatic doors with his hand already resting on his belt, close to his service weapon. It was a posture he developed early in his career, one designed to establish dominance immediately. Laura met him just inside the entrance, speaking quickly before he'd even fully entered the store. "Thank God you're here. That man over there," she pointed toward Jamal, "he drank a water without paying for it. Now he's refusing to come to the office to verify." Todd looked where she was pointing. He saw Jamal Williams standing near his shopping cart, a black man in his 30s, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt, arms crossed, looking frustrated but not aggressive. In Todd's mind, the calculation was instant and automatic. Black man, accusation of theft, manager calling the police. That was all he needed to know. He walked over with that same dominant posture, hand near his weapon, shoulders back, chin up. "Sir," the manager called, "you need to pay for that water and leave." Jamal held up his receipt again. "I already paid. The receipt's right here in my hand." Todd barely glanced at it. "Don't walk away from me. Put your hands where I can see them." Jamal hadn't moved. He was standing in the exact same spot. "I'm holding groceries. I'm trying to show you the receipt. Drop the bags. Right now." Quick question for you watching. Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do? Type yes in the comments if this has happened to you. Jamal carefully set down the 2 grocery bags he was holding, slowly, deliberately, making no sudden movements because he knew exactly how these situations could go wrong. "Officer, I paid for everything in this cart. The receipt shows every item. It's time-stamped from 4 minutes ago. The cameras will show me scanning and paying for everything, including this water." Todd snatched the receipt from Jamal's hand. He looked at it for maybe 2 seconds, not actually reading the items or checking the timestamp, just holding it like a prop. "How do I know this is your receipt? How do I know you didn't pick it up off the floor?" Jamal stared at him in disbelief. "You're serious right now? Do I look like I'm joking? The receipt is timestamped 4 minutes ago. The card number matches my debit card. The items on the receipt match what's in my cart. And I'm certain the security footage will show me at that self-checkout machine scanning these exact items and paying for them." Todd's expression darkened. He didn't like being challenged. He didn't like someone pointing out the obvious holes in his logic. And he especially didn't like it from someone he'd already categorized as a suspect. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." "For what? What crime am I being arrested for?" "Retail theft and disorderly conduct." "I haven't stolen anything, and I've been nothing but calm. Asking questions isn't disorderly. You're being argumentative with me. That's disorderly." Jamal felt his military training kicking in. Stay calm. Don't escalate. Don't give them ammunition. But another part of him, the part that had spent 15 years defending the Constitution, refused to just submit to this injustice. "I'm requesting your supervisor. I want a supervisor here before you arrest me." Todd actually laughed. "You think you're special? Everyone wants a supervisor when they get caught. I'm a master sergeant in the United States Army. I'm on leave visiting my mother. I have done nothing wrong, and I'm formally requesting your supervisor be present." "Sure you are. And I'm a general. Turn around." By this point, other customers had stopped shopping. An elderly white woman who'd been in line behind Jamal at self-checkout was watching. A college-age kid had his phone out, recording. A middle-aged couple had paused their shopping to see what was happening. Todd grabbed Jamal's arm. Jamal didn't pull away, but he didn't turn around either. He stood firm. "You're resisting arrest," Todd announced loudly, playing to the cameras and witnesses. "I'm not resisting. I'm standing still, asking for your supervisor before you arrest me for something I didn't do." Todd yanked Jamal's arm behind his back, hard. The shoulder that had been injured by shrapnel during Jamal's second deployment to Afghanistan screamed in pain. The shoulder that still sometimes kept him up at night. The shoulder that ended his hopes of making special forces. "That's my injured shoulder," Jamal said through clenched teeth. "You're hurting me. Should have thought about that before you stole." "I didn't steal anything." The handcuffs clicked shut around Jamal's wrist. Todd made them tight, tighter than necessary. Within seconds, Jamal could feel his hands starting to go numb. The elderly woman who'd been at self-checkout stepped forward. "Officer, I was right behind this man in line. I watched him scan every single item and pay with his card. He didn't steal anything." Todd didn't even look at her. The college kid with his phone called out, "I've got video of him at checkout. You can see him scanning everything and paying in the background of my video." Todd turned to him with a hard stare. "Step back. This doesn't concern you." It concerns me when someone's getting arrested for something they didn't do. Step back right now or I'll arrest you for interfering with police business. The kid stepped back but kept his phone up, still recording. Jamal stood there in handcuffs in the middle of Save Mart. His groceries sat in the cart beside him. The receipt that proved he'd paid for everything was crumpled on the floor where Todd had dropped it. And a growing crowd of witnesses was watching a black veteran get arrested for the crime of buying water. Todd grabbed Jamal by the arm and started walking him toward the exit. "Let's go. My groceries," Jamal said. "I need to. You should have thought about that earlier." They walked through the store, past the self-checkout area where Jamal had paid for everything, past manager Laura Kensington, who was now looking uncertain, past the crowd of customers, several with phones raised, recording everything, through the automatic doors into the afternoon heat. Todd opened the back door of his patrol car and guided Jamal inside, not gently. The hard plastic seat, the smell of disinfectant and old sweat, the metal cage separating the back from the front. Jamal sat there, hands cuffed painfully behind his back, injured shoulder throbbing, and felt a rage building inside him. Not the hot rage of combat, the cold rage of injustice. The rage of being treated as less than human in his own country, the country he'd sworn an oath to defend. Todd got in the front seat and started his paperwork. He radioed dispatch. One subject in custody for retail theft. Transporting to booking. Dispatch acknowledged. They asked for a description. Todd provided it, making Jamal sound confrontational and uncooperative from the start. While Todd was in the parking lot filling out his initial report, things were happening inside the store that he knew nothing about. The college student with the video had approached Laura. "You need to see this." He played his video on his phone. It clearly showed Jamal at the self-checkout, carefully scanning every item including the case of water, inserting his card, completing the payment, and grabbing his receipt. Laura's face went pale as she watched. She'd just called the police on someone who'd done absolutely nothing wrong. The elderly woman was talking to another store employee, her voice getting louder. "That man did nothing wrong. I saw him pay. This is outrageous." The assistant manager, who'd been in the back office, had pulled up the security footage. He had 4 different camera angles showing Jamal's entire time in the store. Shopping, self-checkout, scanning items, paying, opening the water after paying, everything. He called Laura on her cell. "You need to get back here and look at this footage. He definitely paid for everything." Laura rushed to the office. She watched the security footage. 4 angles, all showing the same thing. Jamal scanning items, Jamal paying with his debit card, Jamal grabbing his receipt. The timestamps on the footage matched the timestamp on his receipt perfectly. She'd made a terrible mistake, an assumption based on seeing a black man drink water in the store. And now that man was sitting in a police car because of her assumption. She ran out to the parking lot. Todd was still in his patrol car, typing on his laptop. She knocked on his window. "Officer, I need to talk to you." Todd rolled down the window, looking annoyed. "Ma'am, I'm processing the arrest. He paid for everything. I have the security footage. 4 cameras showing him scanning every item and paying for it. This was a mistake." Todd stared at her. "You called 911 saying he stole. I was wrong. I made a mistake. The cameras prove he paid. He has a valid receipt. He did nothing wrong." This was the moment. The moment where Todd could admit the error, uncuff Jamal, apologize, let him go with his groceries and his dignity. Or he could double down. Do you think the officer will do the right thing? Comment your prediction below. Todd chose to double down. "Ma'am, he was uncooperative and disorderly. He refused to comply with store personnel. That's still a violation." Laura shook her head. "He wasn't disorderly. I watched the whole thing. He was frustrated, yes, but he wasn't disorderly. He just kept trying to show us his receipt. Please, just let him go. I'm not pressing any charges. It's not up to you anymore. He's under arrest." Laura stepped back from the car, realizing she'd started something she couldn't stop. Todd drove Jamal to the police station. The drive took 14 minutes. Jamal sat in the back in silence. He knew better than to say anything. Anything he said could be twisted and used against him. He'd wait for a lawyer. At the station, Jamal was taken to booking. The officer doing intake was a veteran named Miguel Alvarez. He'd served in the Marines before becoming a cop, and he had a specific respect for active duty military personnel. When Miguel took Jamal's wallet to inventory his personal property, he found Jamal's military ID, Master Sergeant Jamal Williams, active duty. The ID showed his rank, his security clearance level, and his unit at Fort Benning. Miguel looked at the ID, then at Todd. "He's active duty military?" "He says he is." Miguel held up the ID. "This is a Department of Defense identification card. It's real. What's he being charged with?" "Retail theft." Miguel pulled up Todd's preliminary arrest report on the computer. He read it. Then he looked at Todd with an expression that said he'd seen a lot of bad arrests in his career, but this might be the worst. Where's the stolen merchandise? Todd hesitated. The store has it. You didn't recover any stolen items from his person? The manager said he drank a water without paying. Did you verify that? Did you check his receipt? He had a receipt, but did the receipt show the water or not? Todd was getting defensive. The manager called it in. I responded to the call. Miguel closed the computer screen. I'm not processing this. Call your supervisor. What? You have to process. I'm not booking an active duty master sergeant for retail theft when you recovered no merchandise. He has a receipt and the store manager is now saying it was a mistake. Call your supervisor. Now. Todd's supervisor was Lieutenant Daniel Crossman, a 20-year veteran who'd been a sergeant before Todd was even in high school. He arrived at the station 25 minutes later, and the expression on his face when Miguel explained the situation told everyone in the room that someone was about to have a very bad day. Lieutenant Crossman read Todd's report. He talked to Miguel. He looked at Jamal's military ID. Then he went to the holding area where Jamal was waiting. Master Sergeant Williams? Jamal looked up. Yes, sir. I'm Lieutenant Crossman. On behalf of the Columbus Police Department, I apologize. This arrest was improper. You're being released immediately. No charges will be filed. I want documentation of this, Jamal said, his voice level but firm. I want the names and badge numbers of everyone involved. I want copies of all reports, all body camera footage if any was activated, and all security footage from the store. I want it in writing that I was arrested without probable cause. Crossman nodded. You're entitled to all of that. And again, Master Sergeant, I sincerely apologize. This should never have happened. With all due respect, sir, your apology doesn't change the fact that I was handcuffed in front of a crowd of people, thrown in the back of a patrol car, and treated like a criminal for buying groceries. Your officer damaged my injured shoulder. Your officer ignored multiple witnesses. Your officer refused to look at clear evidence. An apology doesn't fix that. You're absolutely right, it doesn't. But I will make sure this is addressed. 2 hours after being arrested in the Save Mart parking lot, Jamal walked out of the police station. His mother was waiting outside, having received a call from the police to come pick him up. She was 68 years old, still recovering from hip surgery, and she'd driven herself to the station because her son had been arrested. She took one look at Jamal's face and knew. She knew the anger. She knew the humiliation. She knew the specific kind of rage that comes from being treated as a criminal for being black in America. I'm so sorry, baby, was all she said. Jamal didn't respond. He was already planning his next steps. The following morning, Jamal contacted the military's legal assistance office at Fort Benning. The attorney there, Captain Rachel Mitchell, had handled cases like this before. When active duty service members are wrongfully arrested, the military takes it seriously. You have witnesses, video evidence, a receipt, and you were arrested anyway. Captain Rachel Mitchell said after hearing the story, "This is a clear civil rights violation. The military will support you in pursuing this." She helped Jamal file a formal complaint with the Columbus Police Department's Internal Affairs Division. She also contacted the Department of Defense Legal Affairs Office. When an active duty service member with an exemplary record is wrongfully arrested, that information goes up the chain, fast. Within 48 hours, the Columbus police chief received calls from 2 different military legal offices. The message was clear: handle this properly, or the military would get involved in ways the city wouldn't like. The internal affairs investigation opened immediately. The investigator assigned was Lieutenant Isabel Moreno, a 15-year veteran known for being thorough and fair. She pulled all the security footage from Save Mart, 4 camera angles showing Jamal's entire time in the store, shopping, self-checkout, scanning every item, paying with his card, opening the water after completing the purchase. She interviewed witnesses. The elderly woman confirmed Jamal had scanned everything and paid. The college student provided his cell phone video. Other customers who'd witnessed the arrest all said Jamal had done nothing wrong. She interviewed Laura Kensington, who admitted she'd made an assumption and hadn't actually looked at Jamal's receipt. The security footage proved he'd paid for everything. Then Lieutenant Isabel Moreno interviewed Officer Todd Harrison. And that's when the investigation revealed the deeper problem. Because Todd couldn't explain why he'd arrested Jamal after being shown a receipt, he couldn't explain why he'd ignored multiple witnesses saying Jamal had paid. He couldn't explain why he'd refused to check the security cameras before making the arrest. He couldn't explain why he'd continued with the arrest even after the store manager said it was a mistake. What became clear was that Todd had made his decision the moment he walked in and saw a black man accused of theft. Everything after that was just theater. Isabel Moreno pulled Todd's complete service record and found patterns. Over 5 years, Todd had generated citizen complaints at a rate 60% higher than other officers. Many were dismissed, but Lieutenant Moreno examined them for racial patterns. She found 3 complaints that stood out. A black teenager stopped for truancy despite having early dismissal. A Hispanic woman questioned about whether her car was stolen during a routine traffic stop. A black jogger accused of casing houses in his own neighborhood. Isabel Moreno compiled the statistics. Over 5 years, Todd had arrested minority subjects at a rate 3.8 times higher than white subjects in similar situations. His use of force reports involved minorities in 15 out of 17 incidents. His discretionary arrests involved minorities 87% of the time. The pattern was undeniable. Todd had spent 5 years making assumptions based on race, acting on those assumptions without proper investigation, and facing minimal consequences because each incident was reviewed in isolation. Isabel Moreno's report was 42 pages long. Her conclusion was clear. Officer Harrison demonstrated a consistent pattern of racial bias. Her recommendation: immediate termination. Todd was given a pre-termination hearing, as required by his union contract. He brought a union representative. He was allowed to present his defense. His defense was weak. He claimed he'd responded appropriately to a manager's theft report, but the evidence showed he'd ignored the receipt, ignored witnesses, ignored the manager when she tried to correct her mistake, and arrested Jamal anyway. The union rep argued that termination was too harsh for a first offense, but the internal affairs report showed this wasn't a first offense. It was a pattern spanning 5 years. The hearing lasted 3 hours. The decision was unanimous. Todd Harrison was terminated from the Columbus Police Department, effective immediately. But the consequences didn't end there. Jamal filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. His attorney was provided by the military's legal assistance program, which sent a strong message to the city. The U.S. military was backing this claim. The lawsuit alleged false arrest, malicious prosecution, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, violation of 14th Amendment equal protection rights, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It named Officer Todd Harrison personally and the city of Columbus as defendants. The city's legal team looked at the evidence: security footage from 4 angles, multiple witnesses, a receipt proving purchase, a victim who was an active duty master sergeant with 2 Bronze Stars, an officer fired for racial bias. They knew how this would play in front of a jury. Settlement negotiations began within 2 weeks. They eventually settled at $340,000. The settlement also required comprehensive policy changes, mandatory security footage review before arrests in retail theft cases, body cameras for all officers, quarterly audits of arrest data by race, and independent review of use of force incidents. The settlement required one more thing: a public apology from the police chief, delivered at a press conference with Jamal present. If you think justice was served, type "justice" in the comments right now. That press conference happened 3 months after the arrest. Jamal wore his military dress uniform. The ribbons on his chest told the story of his service: 2 Bronze Stars, a Purple Heart, 15 years of defending the Constitution. The chief read a prepared statement acknowledging that Jamal had been wronged, that the arrest was unjustified, and that the department was committed to reform. Then Jamal was given the opportunity to speak. He stepped to the microphone. "I served this country for 15 years, he said, his voice steady. "I've been deployed to combat zones twice. I've been wounded defending American freedom. I've led soldiers in some of the most dangerous places on earth. And I came home and got arrested for buying groceries. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I'm a black man in America, and to Officer Harrison, that was suspicious enough. That tells you everything you need to know about how we're seen. Not as veterans, not as neighbors, not as citizens, but as threats that need to be controlled. That has to change." The press conference was covered by every major news outlet in Ohio. The story went national. Decorated veteran arrested. While grocery shopping was a headline that resonated across the country. The video from Save Mart's security cameras was released as part of the settlement. It went viral, viewed millions of times across multiple platforms. People watched Jamal carefully scanning his groceries, paying with his card, grabbing his receipt, being confronted by the manager, trying to show his receipt to the officer, being handcuffed while groceries sat in his cart and witnesses protested his innocence. Save Mart fired Laura Kensington and issued their own public apology. They implemented a new policy requiring security footage review and management verification before calling police for suspected theft. Todd Harrison tried to find another law enforcement job. Over 6 months, he applied to 9 different departments. Every single one rejected him. His termination for false arrest and racial bias made him unemployable in law enforcement. He eventually found work as a security guard at a warehouse, making $16.50 an hour. He lost his apartment and his fiancée left him. He tells anyone who will listen that he was treated unfairly, that Jamal was uncooperative. He still doesn't see that every choice was his. The choice to assume guilt based on skin color, the choice to ignore evidence, the choice to arrest despite witnesses saying otherwise. Those were his choices. These are his consequences. Jamal returned to active duty. He was promoted to sergeant major last year. He still does his mother's grocery shopping when he visits, though he avoids Save Mart. And yes, he still sometimes gets looks, still sometimes feels eyes following him through aisles. But now when he tells a story, he can point to the settlement, the termination, the policy changes. He can show that sometimes accountability happens. The security footage from Save Mart is now used in police academies across the country as a training video on what happens when officers act on bias instead of evidence. The lesson is simple: one bottle of water, one receipt, one assumption, and one officer who thought his badge meant he never had to say he was wrong. If this story made you think about the assumptions we all make every day, share it. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about accountability and justice. And drop a comment telling me, have you ever been falsely accused of something? Let's talk about it. See you in the next one.